Flagstaff to start my master's program. The landscape was much different than I was expecting. There was a lot of trees, but they were all mainly this one species called ponderosa pine trees, so it wasn't a very diverse array of trees. But what surprised me the most was the diversity of the understory. Like, there were so many different flower species, and like I didn't even know that there was like so many different like just grass species. I just like kind of thought grass was, you know, grass. Yeah, and it just really blew my mind that there was just so much diversity in the things I had overlooked for so long. So then I started trying to figure out what I was going to do for my master's thesis project, and I was looking into post-fire restoration, and I was looking in the scientific literature, and to my surprise, most of the research in northern Arizona in post-fire restoration had been looking at how to bring back the trees. And I was like, wait, what about all these cool grasses and flowers that I'm seeing here? And as I started to get to know other people's research at Northern Arizona University, I made friends with a lot of people in my lab group, the Lab of Conservation Ecology, and I started realizing that everyone's research somehow related to grasses, grasslands, savannas. And so when I started seeing this, it really opened my eyes to the importance of every piece of the landscape, and yeah, it just made me realize how much I had been overlooking in a forest before. Throughout my 2 years in grad school, I think I've kind of learned that maybe science necessarily isn't always about finding the answers. Maybe it's more about the process of learning, because yeah, I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I think that the relationships I'm forming and learning from, both with the people and landscape as well, is what gives me the drive to keep moving forward. So I'm going to take you on a little journey along with my lab group at Northern Arizona University, the Lab of Conservation Ecology, and how we muddle and grapple with our research and everything surrounding it.
Hi, I'm Laura Nicholson. I'm a first-year PhD student here at NAU, and I am studying the Emory Oak, which is a keystone species here in the Southwest, and trying to understand basically the demography of the species, the distribution, and what kind of drives the success and decline of the species.
My name is Brann, and I study the endangered plant Pectis imberbis, and specifically I study how it is affected by disturbance. It grows in the Madrean Sky Islands of southeastern Arizona, and specifically in the semi-arid grasslands and savanna areas of these sky islands. And it's facing a lot of disturbance as human activities have really started to change the landscape.
Okay. Hi, my name is Renee Archie. I'm a part of the 2023-24 Brann program at NAU, and this is my project on dryland restoration on the Navajo Reservation. So, within Arizona, there are a few types of ecosystems, and one of them is the dryland or semi-arid ecosystems, which I'm primarily focusing on. And the point of my project is to create self-sustaining ecological windbreak structures made of native grasses and forests.
My name is Pierson. I am studying Emory Oaks and the ecosystems they live in, and specifically I'm looking at what they will need for regeneration and how we can best grow a new generation of Emory Oaks so that they can survive and grow and replace the old oaks.
Well, my name is Cruz, and for my research I'm studying powerlines and how they can affect wildflowers and the pollinators around those areas, and especially within the power line.
So this thing is called a transect tape, and it's basically a long tape measure, and it's kind of what I use to characterize each site.
I learned that in some areas where Emory Oaks grow, such as savannas, where it's just the Emory Oaks and grass everywhere, the Emory Oaks and the grasses have a kind of relationship where they share water. So the grasses have roots that are more surface level, and then the Emory Oaks, in the few years, their roots grow to a foot long, and so they're able to coexist with the grasses because they don't take up each other's water sources.
This is the most promising substance of blue grama, or Buddalua gracilis.
So at each site with a transect, I collect data on what flowers are along that transect and what nesting material is along that transect for pollinators. And then I repeat this for old fires, an old fire scar, a new fire scar, and then within those fire scars, I look at low intensity burn areas and high intensity burn areas. So then I can compare the pollinator habitat between fire ages and fire severity.
I think grasslands are really amazing because they face a really high level of disturbance, and specifically thinking about fire. Historically, grasslands and savannas in arid regions were burning both from human activity and also naturally during the monsoon season. Lightning strikes would often start fires.
The ecosystems of the Southwest historically experienced low-intensity wildfires, and these low-intensity wildfires created this mosaic meadow structure with patches of trees interspaced with meadows. But when the Euro-American settlement happened, fire suppression started, and these low-intensity fires no longer could keep this open structure, so instead the forest became very dense. And this is like one reason why the fires get so big and can spread so fast today, is because the forests are so dense.
Although we can't restore the landscape back to the exact historical conditions, it's really good to have an idea of what it was like before it had been changed by humans in such a drastic way.
I've been learning about how climate change and the effects of colonization in the area have greatly impacted the Emory Oak populations here.
It's really an interesting and kind of sad history with westward expansion and the establishment of the reservation system. This has really kind of impacted, obviously, both the tribal community as well as the Emory Oaks.
So that would include a lot of dust storms that kind of increase the infrastructure damage, and as well as it messes with the agricultural and cultural preservation on the reservation.
So at the end of the day, I have these data on the value of pollinator habitat after fire, but sometimes what I struggle with is the world is so much more complex. Science isn't the only piece of the puzzle, you know?
I've experienced it, and I know a lot of tribal communities do experience soil and wind erosion on their lands, and just doing this project is just one piece of the puzzle.
Sometimes I wonder if science forgets to shed light on that emotions are part of this puzzle too.
I, for the most part, feel positive about it.
So sometimes it can be a little depressing, just the way that we as scientists are oftentimes documenting the demise of a really important ecological and cultural species such as the Emory Oak.
So overall, it's very hopeful.
I would say I'm pretty confident, as well as kind of a little bit bothered.
And I think we have to face the fact that we humans, along with our emotions, are part of this landscape.
I have to go through a lot of red tape and just getting everything approved, and it's taken more than 6 months to get this project approved.
This area is managed by many different stakeholders. There's land owned by the federal government, Forest Service, National Park Service, and then there's people who have lived there for generations managing the land and cultivating this area. And then there's also a really large stakeholder of the ranchers who live in this area.
For the power line we're working with, they care about how they're building these power lines, how they're stripping things, and how they're affecting the rest of the landscape. And to me, that's a very positive thing because it shows that overall, even these larger corporations or companies that people think about and typically have negative thoughts about, some of them are thinking for the future. Now, whether it's because they truly care or if it's for money, nonetheless, it's still positive because it's still a positive effect. So then all the other stuff you could get into philosophically, but nonetheless, I think it's positive.
Questions that I wish people would ask me is, why the Navajo Nation?
And I don't think science can always capture all of this complexity of the world. Maybe that's why other forms of knowledge like storytelling, working with people who have lived on the land or managed the land for generations is an important way to portray the complexity of the world that we live in.
Being able to learn from Western Apache tribes has made me feel hopeful that together we can better our management practices and we can learn how to restore this plant and these habitats.
Another initial grass species that I wanted to grow was called rice grass, or Achnathium hymenoides, and this is that. Initially, when I was starting my project, there was very little research done about the germination process of the rice grass species, and so I brought it upon myself to kind of navigate through that with different germination methods. And so this taught me a lot about how the grass species and how incredibly difficult it is to grow and just the specifics of the dormancy process and what every seed has to undergo in order to grow. And the fact that my project site is on a semi-arid landscape, I think it's pretty incredible to see like how much has been grown throughout the years, and it's a very, how do I say, resilient ecosystem.
The youth and people who are really motivated to make changes I find really inspiring.
Collaboration in this area is really cool to see how all of these different stakeholders with different goals can come together and protect this entire habitat.
Shows that even though there's always struggles in society and with people, this shows a positive, direction with companies at least. Like I said, power line companies can't speak for everyone else, but this specific company does seem to care at least a little bit, and that's positive because that means that there's a way to build all these human structures that we need without having a negative effect. I have a family. I have 3 kids, right, and this gives me hope for them.